Every flower tells a story, not just through its color or its scent, but through the vibration it sends into your space and the alignment it carries with your personal fate. In the language of Feng Shui, your energy is not generic. You are not random. You were born under a specific elemental current: metal, wood, water, fire, or earth. And just like your fingerprint, this elemental rhythm influences the way your energy flows through life, through your relationships, your prosperity, even your emotional stability. Yet here's where it gets overlooked. We often choose flowers for how they look. We go to the market and pick what's bright, what's soft, what feels beautiful in the moment. But in doing so, we may unknowingly place into our homes a bloom that contradicts our own energy field. A flower that looks perfect, but vibrationally competes with us instead of supporting us. This isn't about superstition. It's about synergy. In Feng Shui, flowers are not just decor, they are energetic mirrors. They amplify what is already present, and when chosen with awareness, they can also correct what is imbalanced. A water person thrives with blossoms that soothe and anchor. A fire person blossoms best with energy that burns clean and lifts the spirit. A metal person needs flowers that sharpen focus and refine joy. And when you choose the right flower for your element, something subtle but powerful begins to happen. Your home stops resisting you. Opportunities start to flow instead of circling. Your emotions feel more grounded. Your creativity becomes less forced, and even your rest deepens. That's because you're no longer just living around beauty. You're living inside resonance. In today's episode, we're not here to talk about the prettiest flower in the room. We're going deeper than petals and palettes. We're going into the energetic core of who you are. We'll help you identify your personal Feng Shui element, guide you through the energetic traits that define it, and reveal the flower that best nourishes and supports your innate rhythm. This isn't just about flower choice. It's about rebalancing your relationship with your space, and by extension, your future. Because when your home supports your energy, your life stops pushing uphill. It starts flowing forward. Before we dive in, I want to pause and thank you for being here. This channel, New Day Mindfulness, was created to bring ancient insights into our modern lives, to offer you not just aesthetic advice, but energetic clarity. And your presence helps grow that mission. If this video sparks curiosity, if you've ever looked around your home and felt something wasn't quite aligned, even though everything looked beautiful, then I gently invite you to support this journey. A single like, a share, or a kind subscription helps me reach our next milestone of 2,000 followers. With your help, I can continue to bring more depth, more clarity, and more healing tools to this growing community. And trust me, what's coming next in this video may shift the way you decorate forever. Because you're not meant to guess your way through energy, you're meant to align with it. And in the next few minutes, you'll discover which flower feeds your fate, which one lifts your energy instead of draining it, and how a single adjustment can bring your environment into quiet, powerful harmony. Feng Shui Foundation, the 5 elements, and personal resonance. In classical Feng Shui, there is a principle older than furniture, older than walls, older even than temples. It is the idea that the universe is built not from chaos, but from pattern. And that pattern unfolds through 5 elemental forces: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Each distinct, each complete in its own nature, yet always interdependent. These elements are not symbolic abstractions. They are energetic truths. They shape how rivers bend, how trees stretch toward light, how fire dances upward, how mountains settle deep into stillness, and how metal reflects clarity and precision. And just as they govern nature, they also govern us. Every person, based on their time and date of birth, carries an elemental imprint, a dominant rhythm of qi that guides emotional needs, behavioral tendencies, creative flow, and even the kinds of environments in which we thrive or deteriorate. Understanding your personal element is not just an intellectual exercise, it's a compass for navigating life more harmoniously. When your home, your habits, and yes, even your flowers align with your element, you feel that alignment like a tailwind. Things fall into place. Conversations feel easier. Sleep becomes deeper. Opportunities arrive without being chased. It's not magic, it's resonance. And this resonance is the very foundation of personalized Feng Shui, working with energy that matches your blueprint rather than forcing outcomes through unrelated symbols. So what exactly does your element say about you, and how do flowers come into play? First, let's explore what the 5 elements reveal about personal energy. Someone born under the element of metal typically values precision, discipline, minimalism, and a sense of personal refinement. They are drawn to clarity, justice, elegance, and the kind of beauty that emerges not from extravagance, but from restraint. They often flourish in structured spaces and feel depleted by chaos or emotional unpredictability. A metal person is a sculptor of ideas and a seeker of what is essential. Those born under the element of wood, by contrast, are energetic expanders. They are growth-oriented, ambitious, highly creative, and often driven by a deep desire to move, improve, and innovate. Wood people respond well to environments that feel fresh, organic, and flexible. They dislike being boxed in, either physically or emotionally, and they thrive in spaces that suggest movement, upward lines, plants, open shelving, light. They are drawn to possibility and become stagnant when environments are overly still or monochrome. Water element individuals are depth seekers. Intuitive, emotionally intelligent, and often spiritual by nature, they resonate with symbolism, mystery, and tranquility. They are less interested in surface beauty and more attuned to emotional tone and energetic stillness. Water people often flourish in environments that offer reflection, literally and figuratively. Mirrors, flowing water features, dark blues and blacks, and curved forms appeal to them deeply. They are nourished by solitude and introspection, but can become overly passive if their environment lacks vitality. Fire element personalities are igniters, passionate, expressive, and often naturally charismatic. They burn with ideas and emotions. Their environments must reflect their need for brightness, warmth, and stimulation. They love bold colors, dynamic layouts, and elements that feel alive. But too much fire leads to burnout, so their spaces must also offer moments of calm and cooling textures to balance their temperament. Fire people are drawn to relationships and visibility. They want to be seen, felt, and celebrated. Lastly, earth element individuals crave stability, reliability, and emotional warmth. They are the nurturers, the anchors, the slow and steady hands that hold things together. Earth people gravitate toward muted tones, square shapes, heavy materials, and grounded designs. Their chi thrives in environments that feel solid and safe. No flashing lights or sharp angles. Earth personalities are deeply sentimental, often keeping items for years because of their emotional resonance. While they offer steadiness, they need occasional movement to prevent becoming energetically heavy or emotionally stagnant. Knowing your element allows you to align your environment, particularly the subtle choices you make each day, with your nature. And flowers, while often seen as purely decorative, are one of the easiest and most elegant tools for activating your elemental energy. Because flowers carry more than fragrance or form, their colors vibrate with elemental frequencies. Their shapes mimic natural forces. Their growth behavior and care needs resonate with different energetic types. When you place the right flower into your home, not just any flower, but the one that reflects your elemental chi, you're not simply enhancing your decor, you're enhancing your life's flow. But how do you find your element? While the most accurate way is through a full Bazi or 4 pillars of destiny chart, which takes into account the year, month, day, and hour of your birth, there are simplified general guides that can point you in the right direction based on birth year alone. For example, those born in 1990 or 2000 typically fall under the metal element. If your birth year is 1908 or 98, you are generally considered earth. Those born in 94 or 2004 align with the wood element, while 1992 or 2002 align with water. And if you were born in 1996 or 2006, your element is most likely fire. This is a simplified framework, but it serves as a strong starting point for aligning your space with your nature. Remember though, if your year falls near the Lunar New Year in February, Your element may shift based on the exact solar term, so check a proper Basi calculator for precision. Once you've identified your element, you can begin to see your flower preferences in a new light. The colors you gravitate toward, the types of plants that survive longest in your home, even the arrangements that lift your mood without you knowing why, all of these begin to make sense through the lens of elemental resonance. Flowers chosen at random can disrupt. Flowers chosen with elemental alignment can heal. When your home contains a flower that not only pleases the eye, but nurtures the core of your personal energy, you are no longer reacting to your environment. You are collaborating with it. In the next section of this video, we'll dive into each element in more detail, exploring exactly which flower best harmonizes with your energy and how to place it for maximum effect. From peonies for earth to orchids for metal, lotuses for water to sunflowers for fire, and hyacinths or bamboo for wood, we'll explore the living allies that not only elevate your home's aesthetic, but empower your spirit, stabilize your emotions, and support your personal destiny path. Element 1, metal, Jin, precision, elegance, and clarity. The metal element in Feng Shui is the embodiment of elegance, refinement, and distilled power. It is the energy of autumn, clean air, sharpened intention, the golden edge of letting go. Metal does not strive through aggression, it achieves through precision. Those born under the metal element tend to value structure, order, and clarity. They seek quality over quantity, excellence over noise. Their ideal environments are defined by minimalism, not as trend, but as necessity. Spaces where everything has purpose, and beauty reveals itself through restraint rather than display. This elemental resonance craves calm. It is nourished by stillness. And in that stillness, brilliance emerges. When it comes to aligning with this energy, flowers for metal are not chosen for their exuberance or flair. They are chosen for what they evoke, a refined kind of beauty that whispers rather than shouts, that elevates thought without overwhelming the senses. The most auspicious floral colors for the metal person include white, silver, and pale yellow. These hues are not only harmonious with the energy of metal, they reflect it. White is the color of purity, of mental clarity, of beginnings untainted. Silver represents integrity and high ideals. Pale yellow, often mistaken as dull, is in fact the tone of noble restraint. Soft light filtered through discernment. Among the most resonant flowers for the metal element is the white chrysanthemum. In traditional Eastern symbology, the chrysanthemum is associated with moral clarity, endurance, and the kind of power that comes through composure rather than conquest. It is a flower revered in Confucian traditions for representing the noble person, still disciplined, quietly radiant. In the home of someone ruled by metal, white chrysanthemums offer a kind of psychic cleansing. They hold space for concentration and invite moments of quiet revelation. Place them in a clean glass vase, preferably with minimal greens, and locate them in the west or northwest sector of your home, the Bagua zones associated with creativity and helpful people. In these locations, the flower becomes not just an aesthetic feature, but a beacon of focused energy. It doesn't seduce, it refines. Another powerful ally is the white orchid. If the chrysanthemum stands for moral elegance, the orchid whispers of spiritual clarity. Orchids are structurally precise, symmetrically balanced, and in their white variety align perfectly with metal's affinity for understated perfection. The orchid doesn't bloom in crowded clusters. It extends itself with poise. It holds space. It pauses. White orchids are especially effective in office salon, meditation corners, or near creative workstations where clarity of thought and elegance of form are essential. In Feng Shui terms, orchids are considered stabilizers of mental focus and amplifiers of refined intentions. The metal person, often pressured by high standards or internal critique, benefits greatly from this flower's ability to soften the edges without losing discipline. When placed intentionally in the northwest sector, governed by mentorship and authority, the orchid reinforces inner leadership and graceful self-command. For those drawn toward foliage rather than blooms, silver-toned or dusty leaf plants like lamb's ear or silver dollar eucalyptus offer another pathway into metal alignment. These plants do not crave attention. They are soft to the touch, quiet in form, and resonate with metal's cool yin nature. Their subdued presence is a reminder that power can be soft, that impact can be still. These plants are excellent for those who want to incorporate Feng Shui principles into minimalist interiors or prefer living elements without vibrant color. Placed near windows with indirect light or along hallways that serve as energetic corridors, they infuse the space with a kind of lucid neutrality, a balm against emotional clutter. What these flowers and plants offer is not merely aesthetic coherence, they offer psychological support. The metal personality, though capable of extraordinary brilliance and ethical leadership, is also vulnerable to burnout, perfectionism, and emotional rigidity. The right flowers used mindfully serve not just to align the environment, but to nourish what the metal person often lacks: softness without disorder, beauty without excess, grace without dilution. Flowers act here as teachers, showing the metal soul that precision can coexist with vulnerability, that minimalism need not be barren, that clarity does not require coldness. This approach is mirrored in the personal spaces of renowned metal-aligned figures, such as Giorgio Armani. The fashion icon, known for his sharp tailoring and masterful use of neutrals, embodies metal not only in aesthetic, but in philosophy. In a 2020 interview, Armani revealed that his workspace always contains white orchids, never colored ones, never wild arrangements, but symmetrical, white blooming stems placed against dark surfaces. He described them as calming, elegant, and silent, offering a kind of visual anchor amidst the decision-making intensity of the fashion world. His color palettes, white, dove gray, deep black, are not trends. They are extensions of a metal-aligned spirit, one that prizes timelessness, purity, and refinement. In your own space, to fully integrate these floral allies, consider not only what flower you choose, but how it is presented. Avoid overly decorative vases or busy compositions. Select vessels in metal, ceramic, or clear glass, materials that reflect metal's affinity for clean surfaces and elemental honesty. Keep the surrounding area free of clutter. Let the flower be part of a breathing corner, not a visual competition. And most importantly, replace the flowers as soon as they begin to fade or look tired. The metal element is highly sensitive to disorder or decay. Allowing withered petals to linger not only weakens the energy of the flower, but subtly it undermines the integrity of the space. When you remove an old flower and replace it with a fresh one, you are reinforcing the very essence of metal. Clarity renewed through action, beauty maintained through choice. With the right flower, the metal-aligned individual doesn't just decorate a space, they refine its tone. And through that refinement, then they create an environment that reflects their truest nature: intentional, focused, and beautifully clear. Element 2, wood, mu. Growth, vision, and emotional expression. Wood is the element of the living, breathing force within all of us that craves movement, growth, and expansion. It is not passive, nor is it content with staying still. It pushes through soil toward the sun, rises with intention, and renews itself with every season. In Feng Shui, the wood element governs vitality, family energy, creativity, and the emotional desire to move forward with meaning. People born under the wood element tend to be driven, curious, and often visionary. They are not content with what is. They are compelled by what could be. They seek purpose in action, harmony in structure, and hope in forward motion. For this reason, their environment must reflect that same breath of expansion. They don't thrive in still, heavy places. They wither in cluttered or suffocating spaces. What feeds their energy best is openness, light, rising shapes, and organic life that reminds them we are always evolving. To align with their elemental core, wood personalities benefit from flowers and plants that exhibit that same dynamic posture. Those that grow upright, unfold gradually, and stretch toward light without resistance. Color is equally important. Green, of course, is the purest hue of the wood element, but purple, especially deep, saturated purples and soft lavender tones, offer energetic nourishment too. Purple is the color of emotional depth, compassion, spiritual insight, and visionary thinking. It connects the emotional openness of the heart with the elevation of the mind. For a wood-aligned person, it becomes the color of elevated growth, not just rising, but rising with meaning. Lavender is one of the most healing and harmonizing flowers for the wood personality. Its upward-growing stems, soft purple blooms, and calming fragrance make it both a visual and sensory anchor for renewal. Energetically, lavender helps balance wood's tendency toward emotional overextension. Wood people often give too much, push too hard, or take on too many roles out of a deep desire to fix, support, or build. Lavender says pause, breathe, soften. It clears the inner landscape of tangled thoughts and allows for space to regrow, not just in ambition, but in internal peace. Placed in the east sector of the home, associated with the health and family, lavender brings not only a scent of relaxation, but an energetic recalibration, slowing what moves too fast and soothing what feels inflamed. Purple orchids, by contrast, offer a more regal expression of the wood element. Orchids are naturally aligned with creative elegance and emotional intelligence. When in purple form, they take on a dual role. They stimulate spiritual expansion while also supporting personal refinement. These orchids work beautifully in home offices, reading nooks, or southeast Bagua zones, which govern wealth and opportunity. Unlike white orchids, which harmonize with metal's clarity, purple orchids help the wood personality feel more rooted while reaching for their next vision. They encourage patience in pursuit, grace in development, and integrity in how goals are manifested. For the entrepreneur, the healer, the writer, the mentor, those ruled by wood, purple orchids become companions of purpose. They do not shout for attention. They simply remind. Quietly, daily. Power grows when rooted deeply. Hyacinths are another exceptional ally for the wood element, not just because of their vibrant hues and structured form, but because they embody the cycle of renewal itself. Emerging from bulbs, they carry the promise of rebirth, hope, and beauty rising from dormancy. For wood personalities who may struggle with emotional fatigue, disappointment, or burnout, hyacinths offer symbolic and energetic encouragement. They whisper, "Return is possible. Joy is seasonal. Growth can begin and again." Their fragrance is deeply evocative, helping to lift stagnation and encourage emotional resilience. In Feng Shui placement, hyacinths do well in the east, where their upward force activates health energy, or in the southeast, where they stimulate prosperous unfolding. Displayed in a tall, clear vase with fresh water, they echo wood's need for both visibility and hydration. After all, water nourishes wood, and renewal demands transparency. The placement of these flowers is as important as the species themselves. For wood people, the east and southeast directions of the home are sacred. The east is the rising sun, symbol of vitality, family strength, and continuous growth. The southeast governs accumulated blessings, wealth, but also wisdom that grows steadily over time. To amplify these energies, wood-aligned individuals should use tall or vertical vases made from wood, clay, or glass, never sharp metal or too much synthetic material. The display should suggest natural upward movement, clean lines, breathing space, and a sense of openness. Flowers should always be kept fresh, water changed often, and arrangements placed in locations where light can reach them, whether direct or indirect. Sunlight is not just botanical, it is vibrational food for the wood spirit. Pairing flowers with complementary elements further enhances their energetic value. For example, adding a bamboo stem or a living fern near a lavender bouquet enhances the growth potential of the arrangement. Placing the arrangement near an open window, where fresh air and natural qi circulate, ensures that the flower's energy doesn't stagnate. And integrating greenstones such as jade or fluorite into the same space, whether as decoration or placed in the base of the vase, creates an anchoring point for wood's energetic fluctuations. These crystals echo the energy of personal integrity, heartfelt decisions, and forward motion without force. The wood element also benefits from rhythm and ritual. This means that tending to the flower, changing the water, trimming the stem, adjusting its position according to seasonal light, is not just about aesthetics. It is a form of energetic dialogue. The wood person, always seeking meaningful progress, is subtly reminded through this care that growth is never static, that the small, quiet acts of attention reinforce the larger life movements they are trying to create. When their environment reflects this truth, it becomes an ally, not a distraction. It's no surprise that many creatives, designers, and innovators, people with strong wood kai, are known to keep fresh floral arrangements near their workspaces. The visual cue of a flower mid-bloom, rising upward, balancing color and form, mirrors the mental and emotional posture they hope to maintain. Growth, not chaos. Movement, not urgency. Vision, rooted in compassion. If you are someone born under the wood element, or someone who feels connected to its themes, expansion, resilience, emotional clarity, then choose your flowers not for trend, but for truth. Let your arrangements remind you that beauty grows upward when rooted well, that the vision in your mind becomes reality only when supported by an environment that reflects your pace, your breath, and your purpose. Element 3, water, Shui, intuition, depth, and flexibility. The water element in Feng Shui represents the depths that most people fear to enter, but where the truest treasures are found. It governs not only actual water, the rivers, the ocean, the mist, but also the intangible forces within us that move without form. Intuition, wisdom, inner vision, emotional memory. People born under the water element are naturally introspective and emotionally intelligent. They carry a kind of quiet magnetism, often misunderstood as shyness, but actually born of depth. Water people observe before speaking, feel before acting, and reflect before deciding. Their emotional compass runs deep, and their imagination is fluid, making them the intuitive creatives, the empaths, the seekers of meaning beneath the surface. In life, they flow around resistance rather than crash through it, and when given the space to be still, they return with insight that others often overlook. For water-aligned individuals, the home is not merely a place of shelter, it is a sanctuary of the inner world. Therefore, their environment must support emotional ease, sensory softness, and pathways for thought to unfold gently. The flowers that best resonate with this energy are those that embody the aesthetic and vibrational qualities of reflection, depth, and calm presence. Blue hydrangeas are one of the most powerful floral allies for the water element. Their spherical blooms, reminiscent of clustered raindrops or ocean mist, symbolize both emotional openness and spiritual cohesion. They do not spike upward like fire blooms, nor reach horizontally like wood flowers. They round inward, inviting contemplation. Their deep blue or indigo hues connect directly to the water palette, enhancing relaxation, emotional release, and mental quiet. When placed in the north sector of a home, the area associated with life path, career flow, and spiritual direction, blue hydrangeas gently soften the field of mental noise and allow clarity to rise organically. Another supportive choice is the narcissus. While not always blue in tone, the narcissus flower carries strong water symbolism due to its reflective mythological origins and its preference for blooming near water-rich soil. The flower itself turns slightly inward, creating a posture of self-examination and graceful solitude. In Feng Shui, narcissus is known to support rebirth, inspiration, and quiet progress. It's particularly useful for water individuals who feel stuck in repetitive thought patterns or who are entering a period of reinvention. Narcissus placed on a small writing desk, beside a mirror or a bowl of water, becomes an energetic prompt. Reflect, review, renew. These moments of quiet self-recognition are what allow water people to emerge stronger, clearer, and more centered after a storm. Blue violets are another subtle yet powerful match for the water personality. Small in stature but rich in hue, violets offer gentle emotional healing and psychic softening. Their scent, barely detectable, is almost a metaphor for the water element itself, something that must be approached slowly to be appreciated. Placed near a bed, meditation cushion, or bathtub, violets help water individuals release mental tension and reconnect to the body's inner rhythms. Because water governs dreams and the subconscious, placing blue violets in sleep or rest areas helps calm mental activity and stimulate restorative dreaming. These are not flowers for display. They are flowers for dialogue. A quiet corner with violets in soft lighting can become a refuge where water souls process, recalibrate, and reconnect to what matters beyond the noise. Placement is everything for water-type floral support. The north sector of the home, aligned with the water element in the Bagua system, should be treated not as an entryway for career ambitions only, but as a sacred zone of inner movement. Flowers placed in this area benefit from pairing with other water-inspired items: mirrors, glass bowls, small fountains, black or navy textiles. When you place a blue hydrangea bouquet beside a water feature, the effect is doubled. The water reflects the flower reflects the water, and together they expand the feeling of stillness in emotional depth across the space. Water personalities thrive when their environment mirrors their internal tempo. Soft lines, indirect lighting, rounded forms, and quiet cues for reflection. Unlike fire or wood, they don't need bold stimulation or vertical movement. They need resonance, containment, and quiet activation. This understanding of water's energy is reflected in the personal design preferences of water-aligned public figures, such as Oprah Winfrey. Known for her profound emotional intelligence and ability to distill complex truths into relatable wisdom, Oprah's home environment, particularly her quiet reading space, includes deep blue florals, low lighting, and serene architectural lines. In a 2018 interview, she revealed that surrounding herself with calm colors and fresh blue flowers helped her stay mentally focused and emotionally grounded. The floral choices in her home aren't flamboyant, they're deliberate, echoing her inner state rather than impressing guests. For water personalities, this is key. The environment must be a mirror for the soul, not a stage for performance. To care for water-supportive flowers properly, water people should treat the act of tending them as part of their personal ritual. Changing the water, misting the petals, rotating the placement by intuition rather than schedule. All of these simple actions become extensions of emotional self-care. Crystal pairings also enhance floral potency. Amethyst, moonstone, and lapis lazuli, stones associated with the third eye and inner vision, can be placed in the same area as water-type flowers to reinforce introspection and energetic protection. It's not about building a shrine, it's about creating a resonance chamber where clarity is invited in. Water personalities often absorb external energy easily, so flowers placed with intention can serve as energetic filters, helping them process what's theirs and release what is not. Above all, water-aligned people must avoid environments that are overly dry, overly bright, or overly stimulating. Their flowers, similarly, must not be chosen for showiness or trend. They must be selected for tone, posture, and quiet strength. A single flower that speaks to the soul is more valuable than a bouquet that demands attention but delivers none of the emotional nourishment they require. Whether you're arranging blue hydrangeas in the foyer, placing narcissus by the bath, or tucking a few violets beside your journal, the energy you're creating is not decorative, it's directive. It invites you to reflect deeper, breathe slower, and live from your center. Element 4. Fire Huo, passion, visibility, and motivation. The fire element in Feng Shui radiates with intensity, expression, and the irrepressible urge to be seen, felt, and remembered. It is the element of visibility, magnetism, and creative ignition. When fire is in balance, it brings charisma, confidence, warmth, and radiant vitality that uplifts everything around it. But when neglected or misaligned, fire energy can flicker into frustration, anxiety, or emotional burnout. Those born under the fire element carry a natural spark within them. They are expressive, motivated, and often highly magnetic, drawn to beauty that dazzles, colors that pulse, and experiences that make them feel alive. They are not meant to live in the shadows. Their chi demands recognition, movement, and emotional connection. Their environment must reflect their inner brilliance while also offering the right structures to hold and channel their energy without extinguishing it or letting it flare out of control. One of the simplest yet most potent ways to align their space with this inner fire is through carefully selected flowers, living symbols of Chanyanoi, romance and inspiration that fuel the fire spirit in subtle yet transformative ways. The best flower colors for fire-aligned individuals are red, coral, and deep pink. These are not soft pastels or neutral tones. They are emotionally vibrant, high-frequency colors that mirror fire's yang essence. They don't just decorate a space, they energize it. Red is the traditional color of fame, love, courage, and an active force in Feng Shui. It is the color that says, I am here, I matter, I shine. Coral brings warmth and emotional vibrancy without overwhelming the senses, while deep pink channels playful romance and creative optimism. For fire personalities, these tones speak directly to the heart and help them reclaim their voice, their center, and their sense of inspiration when life feels dull or routine. Among the most powerful floral allies for the fire element is the red peony. Grand, full-bodied, and bursting with layered petals, the red peony is more than a beautiful flower. It is a symbol of noble passion and elevated love. In classical Chinese culture, it is referred to as the king of flowers, often associated with feminine beauty, high status, and dignified affection. But for the fire soul, the peony is not just romantic, it is regenerative. It helps to restore vitality after creative fatigue, reignites purpose after burnout, and reminds the individual of their worth and brilliance. Placed in the south sector of the home, governed by recognition, public image, and personal passion, red peonies activate the energy of being seen in one's highest light. Whether the fire person is a performer, leader, artist, or heart-centered entrepreneur, peonies help refine their glow without diluting their power. Red lotus, another floral companion for fire, carries both spiritual and energetic significance. Unlike white lotus, which reflects clarity and stillness, the red lotus speaks of awakened love, divine passion, and soul-aligned ambition. It blooms not just in mud, but in light, and fire-aligned individuals often feel they must rise through their own emotional underworlds in order to reclaim joy. The red lotus, placed in meditation rooms, creative studios, or near vision boards, becomes a sacred visual reminder that vitality and wisdom can coexist, that one can burn brightly without burning out, and that spiritual practice can be just as expressive as it is quiet. Hibiscus is perhaps the most extroverted flower among fire-aligned allies. With its bold, tropical petals and naturally sunny disposition, hibiscus energizes social interaction, boosts mood, and helps fire types reconnect with their playful, seductive side. It's a perfect choice for living rooms, entertainment areas, or bedrooms where fire individuals seek to recharge through connection and celebration. In a more intimate sense, hibiscus placed near mirrors or creative workspaces can also support the self-confidence needed to share one's voice or creations with the world. This is especially helpful for fire individuals who, despite their natural charisma, can sometimes struggle with fear of judgment or overthinking their visibility. Hibiscus says, be seen, be bright, be unapologetically alive. In terms of Feng Shui practice, fire flowers should always be arranged in odd numbers, 3, 5, or 7. This is because odd numbers carry yang energy, active, assertive, forward-moving. An arrangement of 3 red peonies in a tall glass or ceramic vase placed in the south corner of your home can do more to stimulate recognition energy than any figurine or painting ever could. The vessel should be sturdy and grounding, but never dull. Fire flowers love contrast, so pairing bright blooms with deep black or gold vases adds an energetic charge. Lighting matters too. Fire blooms need natural or ambient lighting to amplify their vibrancy. A flower placed in darkness or hidden in a corner will not just fade, it will symbolically dampen the fire person's own visibility and confidence. Keep the area clean, energized, and well-aired to sustain active qi circulation. Fire-aligned people are emotional alchemists. They turn inspiration into action, love into visibility, vision into creation. But this intensity must be honored, not exploited. That's why the act of tending to fire-aligned flowers is not a decorative habit, it's an energetic ritual. Replacing wilted petals, refreshing water, shifting vase positions to catch morning sun, these are not chores. They are reflections of how the fire person tends to their own flame. And when this flame is honored, life becomes radiant. Relationships deepen, ideas arrive, motivation returns. One small bloom can redirect an entire week's emotional rhythm. This truth is reflected in the creative spaces of modern icons like Beyoncé, whose fire-dominant energy is both commanding and deeply intentional. In a 2020 interview about her creative rituals, Beyoncé mentions surrounding herself with red hibiscus and crimson peonies while developing new projects, saying that these flowers helped her own the room and reconnect with her core confidence. It's not just aesthetic, it's vibrational anchoring. Red flowers around a fire-aligned crater are not passive backdrops. They are emotional allies, reminding the spirit of who it really is when the world feels too noisy or the schedule too full. They give fire permission to rise again, not chaotically, but on purpose. If you are fire-aligned, or if you feel called to reclaim your vitality, passion, and courage to be seen, then start small but start intentionally. Place 3 red peonies in your south wall corner. Add a coral hibiscus to your bedside. Let a red lotus image face your creative desk. These are not symbols, they are catalysts. They don't just match your color palette, they match your purpose. Element 5, Earth 2, nurture, grounding, and long-term stability. The Earth element in Feng Shui is the energy of centeredness, reliability, and the wisdom of slow, steady growth. It represents the magnetic pull toward home, the desire for grounded relationships, and the deeply human need for emotional safety. Earth is the stabilizer among the 5 elements, the one that holds things together when everything else is shifting. While fire inspires movement and water deepens intuition, Earth soothes, contains, and integrates. It is the element of patience, of nourishment, of creating sacred routines that over time build not only security, but also legacy. Earth-aligned individuals that tend to be the anchors in their communities and families, reliable, compassionate, thoughtful, and deeply connected to memory, place, and continuity. They value emotional depth not in waves but in layers. They process slowly, love deeply, and give generously, often putting others' needs before their own. Their energy thrives when they have routines that matter and environments that reflect predictability, warmth, and emotional resonance. And when it comes to aligning this energy with flowers, Earth types don't respond to fleeting beauty or flamboyant arrangements. They respond to rooted color, repetitive care, and blooms that last. The best floral colors for the Earth element are those that reflect the tones of natural soil and harvest. Warm yellows, ochres, rich browns, and soft golds. These colors do not call attention to themselves, but instead generate a quiet strength and a nurturing presence. They are the visual language of warmth, support, and emotional depth. Among the most potent flowers for Earth energy is the yellow camellia. With its soft, layered petals and muted golden glow, the yellow camellia is a symbol of moral integrity, wise prosperity, and inner calm. It does not bloom loudly, and that is precisely its strength. Earth-aligned individuals are not interested in attracting energy through spectacle. They are interested in cultivating peace and trust over time. The camellia supports this through its structure, color, and emotional tone. Placed in the center of the home, also known as Tai Chi and Feng Shui, representing balance and life force integration, the yellow camellia grounds the space like a calm heartbeat. It anchors the energy field, helping the inhabitants feel less reactive, more emotionally stable, and deeply rooted in their own rhythm. Golden chrysanthemums are another sacred ally for the Earth personality. Their sun-like shape and warm gold tone represent vitality, longevity, and clarity of thought. In many Eastern traditions, chrysanthemums are considered a symbol of long life and mental strength. They are not emotionally showy, instead they are contemplative. They support the Earth person's desire to move through life slowly, mindfully, and with emotional dignity. When placed in the northeast sector of the home, governed by wisdom, self-cultivation, and life experience, golden chrysanthemums nourish the kind of inner maturity that the Earth person seeks. They reinforce long-term goals, enhance learning, and help protect against emotional impulsivity. Because Earth energy tends to internalize stress, these flowers also help diffuse internal pressure and bring a more natural cadence to thought processes and emotional digestion. Their impact is not dramatic, but it is durable. They create calm that lasts. Marigolds, with their fiery orange-gold hue and slightly pungent scent, bring another dimension to Earth's floral allies. While camellias and chrysanthemums speak to stability and thoughtfulness, marigolds add a gentle spark, especially for Earth individuals who are stuck in too much sameness or routine. Marigolds remind the Earth soul that stability doesn't mean stagnation, that devotion doesn't mean denial. They bring warmth and a subtle creative lift to spaces that might otherwise feel too heavy. These flowers do well in the Southwest Bagua area, governing relationships and emotional bonding, where they activate warmth, intimacy, and devotion without becoming emotionally overwhelming. Their scent and color also help stimulate appetite, both physical and emotional, making them ideal for kitchen areas, dining nooks, or any room where connection is meant to be nourished. For Earth-aligned people, the act of caring for flowers is not a chore, it is a medicine. These are individuals who recharge through ritual. The act of watering plants at the same time each day, of pruning a bloom with care, of watching a petal open slowly across days rather than minutes. These are sacred gestures to the Earth soul. They remind the Earth personality that time is not an enemy, but a medium through which peace is formed. That consistency is not boring, it is a love language. To enhance the energetic impact of their chosen flowers, Earth individuals can place a clear quartz crystal or a small brass coin in the soil or vase base. These objects add grounding and resonance to the floral key, reinforcing themes of prosperity, protection, and emotional consistency. Earth spaces should be curated for comfort and resonance. That means natural materials, ceramic pots, woven baskets, terracotta planters, rather than synthetic containers. Rounded edges, muted tones, and symmetrical layouts help the Earth personality feel emotionally safe and visually grounded. Too many sharp lines, harsh lighting, or high contrast colors can unnerve Earth Chi and make the environment feel unsupportive. Flowers should be placed in spots where they can be easily tended: kitchen counters, bookshelves, bedside tables. Earth people do not respond well to display-only beauty. They want things they can engage with and care for, which return presence and energy in kind. A single yellow camellia near the stove, a pair of marigolds near the entrance, or a chrysanthemum by a reading chair. All these become energetic totems that say, here you are held. Here you are known. Here you are not in a hurry. Earth personalities often carry a great deal of responsibility, both seen and unseen. They are the ones others lean on during crises. They are the quiet protectors, the keepers of family stories, the ones who rarely ask for help but always offer it. Their flowers should be more than decor. They should be nourishment, because when the Earth person is nourished, the entire home stabilizes. Energy stops leaking, conflict softens, sleep improves, and long-term goals no longer feel like distant dreams. They feel like soil being tilled beneath steady hands. If you feel called toward warmth, continuity, emotional rootedness, and a love of caring rather than consuming, the Earth element is not just your nature, it is your calling. And the flowers that honor that calling will not be loud or fast. They will grow in tune with your breath, open gently with your care, and remain vibrant long after other blooms have faded. Their strength is not in spectacle, it is in staying. So often in life, we search outside ourselves for the next big answer, the next strategy for wealth, the next method for peace, the next shortcut to love or clarity. But Feng Shui whispers a different truth. The answers are already around you, quietly waiting to be noticed. They're resting in the petals of a peony, unfolding in the stillness of a lotus, glowing in the golden smile of a chrysanthemum. Because in Feng Shui, flowers are never just flowers. They are living mirrors of your energy. They are the breath of nature speaking your name back to you. They tell you what you need to heal, where you're ready to grow, and what kind of energy your spirit has quietly been craving. And when you choose a flower not just for how it looks, but for what it represents, you're doing more than decorating. You're reclaiming energetic authorship of your space. You're sending a message to the universe, to your subconscious, and to every vibration in your home. I know what I need, and I'm ready to receive it. Choosing flowers by your personal Feng Shui element isn't a rule. It's a ritual. It's a subtle yet powerful act of self-respect. Whether you're a water soul seeking quiet blue violets to reflect your depth, a fire being called to red hibiscus to reignite your creative blaze, or an earth spirit grounded by golden camellias, your flower is not just an object. It is an ally, one that stands quietly beside you day after day, carrying the frequency of your intention without ever asking for recognition. Your flower holds your energy in bloom. It does what you don't always have time to do. It radiates on your behalf. So the next time you hold a bouquet in your hands, or walk past a vase in your kitchen, or see petals falling from a windowsill, pause, and ask not just, is it beautiful? But instead, is this meant for me? Because true beauty isn't just what pleases the eye, it's what heals the heart. It's what strengthens the energy of your life path without ever needing to be loud. It's what nourishes the space you live in and the soul you're growing into. If this video has helped you see flowers as more than just decorations, if it has offered you a fresh understanding of your Feng Shui element and the kind of energy you're now ready to welcome, then I warmly invite you to support this space by subscribing to New Day Mindfulness. Every like, every share, every comment helps this community grow and gives me the chance to bring more heartfelt, high-quality teachings into your home. And in the comments below, I'd love to hear, which flower are you now drawn to, and what does that choice say about the energy you're ready to embrace? May your next bloom carry more than fragrance. May it carry you toward the harmony your soul has been waiting for. If this video touched you, please leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to help us reach 2,000 followers. Your presence here means more than you know. Let's grow this journey together.